guys, welcome back to the channel. This is vlog number 25, and it's going to cover a session I played during a trip I took last week to Las Vegas. There's a few more vlogs coming from this trip, so if you guys are interested, stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll be coming out with those shortly. This one in particular is going to be about Planet Hollywood, which I'm sure at least some of you guys have played at, and if you haven't, I'm going to let you know a few things about the room you should know beforehand. Right after that, we're gonna jump into a few hands, which again, I filmed from the table itself this time. You guys seem to enjoy that format last vlog, so that's what I went with this entire Vegas trip. Anyway, without any further ado, let's jump into the pros and cons of Planet Hollywood's poker room. First things first, the main thing I enjoy about this poker room is that it's a very fun atmosphere. So for those of you guys who like a more serious, professional vibe, if you will, I think you're better off with the Encore or Bellagio, for example. Secondly, from the few times I've been there, the staff seem very friendly and accommodating. It might have something to do with the fact that they just get less volume coming in, so it's easier to have like a personal relationship with each customer, but they're all super nice and seem to really care about any issues you might have. In addition, the game quality here is great. There's not a ton of good players. The games are generally soft. It probably has something to do with the atmosphere and the fact that they don't offer very many high stakes. Lastly, one of the cooler things about this poker room is that they allow under the gun and button straddling like a lot of other places do, but they also have something called the famous straddle, spelled with a PH, of course, which is kind of their own thing. And at 1-2, what that means is you can straddle from anywhere on the table, but it has to be $20, which is 10 big blinds. Pretty huge straddle, and it's a really good incentive for action. Lots of fun if you could get a round of those straddles going. Moving on to some of the bad things about this place. Number one is gonna be somewhat related to the first good thing, which is just the atmosphere. The lighting isn't great, which doesn't help. The music is really loud, which can be distracting. And also, speaking of distractions, they have girls dancing on stage a few feet away in like, you guys know what kind of clothing I'm talking about. That might not necessarily be on the bad side as much as the good side. It's kind of personal preference, but it's certainly not the most easy atmosphere to focus in. Secondly, there's no separation between the poker room and the rest of the casino. It's more of a floor space with poker tables than anything, which means there's a lot of people just walking through, navigating through the casino, which is kind of cool, but it gets a little old after like the fourth time you get knocked into by someone. And lastly, this isn't a huge issue, but this room just doesn't get as many games going as some of the bigger competition like Aria, Bellagio, etc. I think at the peak hours, they have maybe like 6 or 5 games going, which obviously means you might be looking at a longer wait time if you want to play here. So overall, I'd give this place a 6 out of 10. I think it's a great place to play some low stakes poker in Vegas, especially if you guys enjoy a more fun atmosphere. Moving on, I certainly got into a few interesting spots, so I'll shut up now. 1-2 no limit, in for 300. Let's go play some poker. Alright, so as mentioned, playing 1-2 no limit, in for 300, and right off the bat, we look down at pocket queens from under the gun. Couple of ladies, nice warm welcome to Planet Hollywood. I open it up to $10 and get called by just a small and big blind. The flop brings the dreaded ace on ace 9-8 with 2 hearts. The small blind checks, and surprisingly the big blind puts out a bet for $12. I think it's a little too weak to just let it go at this point, so I make the call and the small blind gets out of the way. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, and once again the big blind puts out a bet of $12. At this point, it doesn't look like a very strong hand, perhaps an ace, rag, or heart draw type of hand, so I actually don't hate a raise here to get value from draws and also get them to fold weak ace. But our hand is pretty strong still at this point, so I think it's okay to also just call and see what happens on the river. So this time I decided to just call, and we're heads up to a river, which is the 5 of diamonds. For the third time, he bets $12, and at this point we're getting like 37 to 1 pot odds, so Not really interested in running a bluff now. I make the call and we get shown Queen Jack offsuit. Pretty good indication of one of the reasons I like to play here at Planet Hollywood. You get hands like these. A few minutes later, there's an under the gun open from one of the more solid players at the table. He makes it $10. It folds to us in the small blind, and I look down at pocket queens once again. For sure a 3-bet candidate, so I make it $35. The big blind folds and the under the gun player calls. So we're going heads up to a flop out of position of ace, queen, 5 with 2 hearts. I think against most opponents, I prefer to just bet here, but against a solid reading opponent, I think setting the trap is a good option as well. So this time I decided to check, and he quickly checks it back. The turn is the deuce of clubs. I bet $35, and without too much hesitation, he grabs his remaining stack, which is around 150, and shoves it in there. I make the easy call. The river's the 10 of spades. I just turn over the set. He doesn't look too pleased and throws it in the muck. So maybe the flop check worked out in our favor this time. Not sure what he had. Presumably an ace king or at worst ace jack type of hand. Very unlikely he had ace queen, but regardless, the queens take it down once again. Next, we look down at ace 10 offsuit from early position, open it up to $10 and get 2 callers. 3 ways to a flop, which comes 10, 8, 5 with 1 diamond and 2 hearts. Action checks to us. I put in a continuation bet of $15. The first player folds, and now the big blind puts in a check raise to $45. I'd been getting the feeling that he wanted to make a move pretty soon, just because I'd been very aggressive on his left, so I wasn't too surprised by this actually. So I'm not automatically narrowing his range here to good hands. Pretty sure he could have a variety of holdings, so I put in the call and see what happens on the turn. At this point, the big blind has around $200 heading to the turn, which comes to 8 of diamonds. He continues for $70, and I actually contemplate jamming all in here just to get him to commit worse hands like worse 10s, straight draws, flush draws, and just other hands that he could be making a move with. The 8 is a good turn card because it reduces the possibilities of our opponent having 2 pairs like 10-8 or 8-5, and also just having a set of 8s is way less likely now. So after thinking about it for a little bit, I decide to keep ranges wide and keep in all his bluffs, considering that this guy in particular can certainly have some. So I make the call, and we go off to a river, which is the 3 of diamonds. He doesn't think for too long and shoves the rest of his stack, which was around 120 or 130. And I think this is a pretty mandatory call. All the heart draws missed, the straight draws missed, including 9-7 or 7-6. And at this point, he's pretty much only representing monsters. So I make the call, and surprisingly, we get shown 6-9 of diamonds. So the read was on point, but as you guys I'm sure know, sometimes they just get there. Nice hand, bro. So at this point, I play a hand which unfortunately was not captured on video. I think I was taking notes about a previous hand when it happened, but it's pretty important to the session and it sets up the following hand nicely. We got a player at the table who isn't my favorite type. He's got headphones on. He's tanking every time it's his turn by splitting his cards apart like they're on an RFID reader on TV, and then taking a few seconds to either put money in or fold. He's also telling everyone the mistakes they're making after every hand, which, come on, man. I'm in the straddle in this hand with Queen 8 of spades, and he opens from early position at $20. Certainly not a hand you have to play, but I want to mix it up, see what happens. Heads up to a flop, which comes Queen Jack 6 with 2 diamonds. So we flop top pair, check it over to him, and he pretty quickly checks it back. So I'm certain we have the best hand unless we get an overcard on the turn, which unfortunately is what happens. Offsuit king, I check it over to him one more time, and this time he does put in a bet of $30. Pretty miserable turn card. He's gonna have a lot of kings after checking back the flop, but I decide to call and either go for value if our hand improves on the river, or potentially run a bluff if a diamond comes. If the river's a brick, I'm probably just gonna check and give up to a reasonably sized bet. So as played, I put in the call and we go heads up to a river, which is the 3rd diamond. I think this is a great card for us to bluff. It looks a lot like we have a flush draw after checking twice and then calling his bet on the turn. So I think about it for a little bit and slide out a bet of $105. If he has a monster, good for you, bro, but if we put him on just a king, it's gonna be a pretty hard call from his position. So I sit there thinking for a little bit. He doesn't look happy at all, and eventually flicks in a call. That can't be good news for us. I show the queen 8, and he throws his cards in the muck. Not really sure what's going on here. He instantly says, yeah, see, I knew you were bluffing. If he's calling us super light and he's incorrect, that's not really our fault. So I let him know that it wasn't a bluff, it was for value. I'm obviously trolling, and he says, if that was for value, we're gonna have a lot of fun together, buddy. Just keep putting your money in the middle. I don't really respond, but nothing wrong with a little healthy competition at the poker table, right?
That's just so sick. They'd have no concept of poker.
It was an aggressive call.
Aggressive call? Idiots. Idiot players call races with queen 10. They don't even know how to spell poker. I mean, like, this kid has all the chips.
So for the next few minutes, our new friend across the table continues with banter, to put it lightly. Well, just to be honest with you guys, he's talking shit, saying how much I suck. Most of the time, everyone being friendly and, you know, just having fun, occasional drinking is the best kind of poker game, but when things get a little heated, it can also create some good action, unfortunately. In this next hand, there's one limp, and I make it $15 with pocket queens. Our best friend is in the big blind, which is great. He makes the call, and the limper folds. The flop comes king, queen, 8. So we smash middle set with queens again, loving life. He checks it over to us. I bet $15, and he makes the call. The turn is an offsuit 5. He checks, and I fake some hesitation before sliding out an awkward bet of $55. He doesn't think for too long and puts in a check raise to $160, leaving himself with around $150 behind. Not a huge fan of using too much poker lingo, but this is what I would consider a polarized check raise. He's representing either a lot of strength or not much at all. For hands he's doing this for value with, we're going to get all the money in on the river no matter what. This includes pocket 8s that flopped a set, maybe like a king 8 suited, potentially pocket 5s that get really sticky on the flop. Just a bunch of strong hands that are going to continue on the river. And for bluffs, he should be continuing on the river as well if we just call. So I decided to just make the smooth call. Don't want to scare away any of his potential bluffs. The river comes an ace, which actually is not my super favorite card, because if he is getting out of line with jack 10, that just got there, but it doesn't really change anything because there's no way we're folding at this point. He quickly moves in for, like I said, around $150. I make the call, and we get shown king jack offsuit. Pretty big overplay on his part, and I would be lying if I told you this didn't have anything to do with the last 10 minutes. Certainly feels like a personal hand, and I'm not gonna lie, it feels pretty good to stack the guy who is bullying everyone on their poor decision making. He says nice hand in an extremely genuine way, I'm sure, gets up and goes off into the night. One for the good guys. Shortly after, I decide to rack up and finish the session on a sweet note. Alright, that's a wrap for this session. Ended up booking a pretty decent win, especially considering that this is 1-2 no limit, and I didn't play too many hours. I hope you guys enjoyed the hands. As always, thank you guys for watching. The next vlog is going to be from downtown Las Vegas, the Golden Nugget, a famous place to play some poker. Anyway, as always, thanks for the support. Good luck out there, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.